The unexpected often happens, but not always on such a scale as in this story. In Ecuador stands the great volcano of Tungurahua, a black pile of rocks, frequently covered with snow. 30 miles away lies the town of Rio Bamba, where I spent several enjoyable weeks looking for porters to carry my packs to the summit of this sleeping giant. No one was anxious to take part in such an adventure as this, but after much talking, a number of men agreed to go. They all belonged to the same family, fine, energetic fellows. The youngest member of the household could not come. Important duties kept him at home. With everything in readiness, we turned our backs on Rio Bamba and the kindly people who had done so much to help us. Amongst many interesting facts which they told us was that the black giant we were on our way to visit had been asleep for 50 years. As we wound our way over a well-defined trail, the occasional glimpses we got of Tungurahua's summit showed us that it was still slumbering peacefully, the way it had been for half a century. Conditions could not have been more perfect for our adventure, but had we known what was in store for us, our mules would have been headed in another direction. Deep gorges and swift rivers now began to bar our progress. In this wild valley, we left our mules behind us and started to climb the mountainside on foot. Around the corner, conditions did not look encouraging. Storm clouds were driving over the mountain tops, and before we knew it, we were enveloped in mist. For 2 days, we struggled upwards through fog and rain. On the afternoon of the second day, we came out on an open shoulder where all plant life ceased. Here we passed the last sentinel of the vegetable world, where it had stood for centuries, bent and twisted, but still defying the fury of the elements. In a secluded niche we made our camp, and as the clouds lifted, we saw the summit of the black giant towering over our heads. To our surprise, steam was seen pouring out of the crater. We spent a chilly night, and at the first streak of dawn were on our way again, up the bare cinder slope, where one false step would have sent us rolling to eternity. At last the summit, after 3 hours steady climbing. Here at 16,000 feet, the air was warm, for coming out from amongst the rocks were innumerable jets of steam. This was no sleeping volcano at all, but a bonfire such as giants build. Without losing further time, we hurried over to the main crater and cautiously approached the brink. Before us was a great hole bored deep down into the heart of the earth. The huge gaping mouth was streaked with many colors, of which purple and red predominated. All was still except for the gentle hiss of steam and the sighing of wind that blew faintly from the east. Around about us, jagged rocks jutted up into the sky. This was indeed a strange and fantastic world, the like of which I had never seen before. Dense clouds now began to gather. The wind increased in violence, and the sound of escaping steam grew louder in our ears. It seemed as if the sleeping giant resented this intrusion on his privacy. Gradually the din increased. The noise of the escaping steam became terrific, but in spite of all foreboding, we could not resist one final look down the giant's throat. Before we knew it, a deafening roar rent the air, and everything went black before us. We groped our way in search of those who had disappeared in the confusion. Reunited, we waited in a sheltered spot for the worst to pass. Within an hour, conditions began to improve, so we made ready for our return. As we did so, a sinister glow came from the main crater. It attracted us like moths to a flame. To the edge of that inferno we went again, and heading into the great abyss below, we saw this pool of molten lava, boiling, heaving, and writhing as if in a giant cauldron. As we watched the spectacle spellbound, we realized to our dismay that the fiery liquid was rising rapidly. It was madness to delay any longer, so seizing our belongings, we headed for home. Down the mountainside, we hurried. As we did so, more rumbling sounded underfoot. Rocks were dislodged by the tremors of the earth and came rolling down the slope. Just as we reached the safety of our camp, the frequency of the shocks increased. A dull roar followed, and looking back, we saw the most awe-inspiring sight which human eyes had ever rested